The conference hall was filled with applause. Crystal chandeliers reflected light across polished floors, and rows of neatly dressed executives stood as the CEO finished his speech. Cameras flashed. Assistants whispered reminders. Everything was perfect. Controlled, successful, powerful. Ethan Cross stood at the center of it all, calm and composed, the way everyone expected him to be. He nodded politely, accepted a handshake here, a congratulatory smile there. Years of discipline had taught him how to look confident even when his mind was already moving to the next responsibility. Another deal, another meeting, another flight. That's when he saw her. She stood near the back of the hall, half hidden behind a marble pillar. Too small to belong there. Too still. While adults buzzed around her, laughing and networking, the little girl didn't move at all. She was maybe 6, thin, wearing a pale blue dress that looked borrowed, not chosen. Her dark hair was tied with a ribbon that had frayed at the edges. She clutched a worn stuffed rabbit to her chest, one ear hanging loose by a thread. Ethan frowned slightly. Security was tight. No one got in without approval. Yet there she was, alone. "Excuse me," he said quietly to his assistant, stepping away from the crowd. "Who's that child?" The assistant followed his gaze. "Oh, her. She's with the charity group downstairs. They're waiting to meet you briefly. Something about the new foundation project." Ethan nodded, but his attention never left the girl. Her eyes were fixed on him. Not curious, not excited, searching. He felt an unexpected tightness in his chest and shook it off. "You're tired," he told himself. "Long day." As the crowd thinned, the charity coordinator approached, smiling nervously. "Mr. Cross, thank you so much for your time. This is Lily." The girl didn't smile, didn't speak. Ethan crouched slightly so he wouldn't tower over her. "Hello, Lily," he said gently. She glanced at the coordinator, then back at him. Her grip tightened around the rabbit. The coordinator cleared her throat. "Lily lives at the children's home we mentioned. She lost her mother last year. Her father." She stopped, choosing her words carefully. "He's not in the picture." Ethan nodded slowly. He had heard stories like this before. Too many times. He donated. He funded programs. He gave speeches about opportunity and hope. This should have felt familiar. But it didn't. Because Lily suddenly took a small step forward. The room felt quieter somehow, like the air itself was listening. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and impossibly serious for such a young face. There was no childish hesitation, only a fragile determination, as if she had practiced this moment in her head 100 times. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Can you be my mom?" The words landed like a blow. Ethan froze. For a split second, he thought he had misheard her. His mind scrambled for logic, for an explanation, for anything that made sense. The coordinator gasped softly, "Lily," but Ethan raised a hand, stopping her. He stared at the little girl in front of him. The way her lower lip trembled as soon as the words left her mouth, as if she was afraid she had said too much. The way she held her breath, waiting, hoping. Something inside him cracked. Memories he kept carefully locked away surged forward without permission. A hospital room. The steady beep of a monitor. His wife's hand growing cold in his own. "I'm sorry," she had whispered. "I wanted to stay." He hadn't cried then. He had been strong. He had been the CEO. He had buried himself in work and let the world praise him for surviving. But now, standing in a bright hall filled with success and applause, a little girl's whisper shattered him. His vision blurred. He blinked once. Then again. Too late. A tear slipped down his cheek. The room was completely silent now. Conversations had stopped. People were staring, unsure of what they were witnessing. Ethan Cross, the man known for unshakable composure, was crying. Lily noticed immediately. "I'm sorry," she whispered quickly, panic flooding her face. "I didn't mean to make you sad. I just thought maybe, because you look lonely too." That did it. He sank fully to his knees in front of her, no longer caring about suits or status or eyes watching him. His chest shook as another tear fell, then another. Lonely. He reached out carefully, as if afraid she might disappear, and gently brushed a tear from her cheek instead of his own. "No," he said hoarsely. "You didn't do anything wrong." Her small fingers loosened around the rabbit just a little. "I don't have a mom," she said softly. "Everyone else does." Ethan swallowed hard, his throat burning. He took a slow breath, steadying himself, and met her gaze again. I don't know the answer yet, he said honestly. But I do know this. He placed a hand over his heart, feeling it pound like it hadn't in years. I hear you. Lily nodded, as if that alone meant something important. And in that moment, before decisions, before paperwork, before the world weighed in, something changed forever. Because the most powerful man in the room had just been undone by the smallest voice, no one spoke. The chandeliers still glowed, the banners still hung proudly, but the room felt suspended in time, as if everyone had forgotten how to breathe. Ethan remained on his knees in front of Lily, one hand resting lightly on the carpet, the other hovering uncertainly near her small shoulder. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, stood firm in crises that shook entire markets, but this moment left him unarmed. The charity coordinator was the first to recover. Mr. Cross, she said gently, stepping forward. Lily didn't mean to. I know, Ethan interrupted quietly. His voice was steady now, but something fundamental had shifted inside him. He looked at Lily again, really looked, at the dark circles beneath her eyes, the careful way she stood as if trying not to take up space, the way she watched his face for signs of rejection. How long have you been thinking about asking that? He asked softly. Lily hugged the stuffed rabbit tighter. Since yesterday, she admitted. They said you were coming today. They said you help people. I try, Ethan said. She nodded as if that confirmed everything she needed to know. You looked kind in your picture. His chest tightened again. He slowly stood, then gestured toward a quieter corner of the hall where the noise of the event faded into a distant hum. May we sit for a moment? He asked the coordinator. Of course, she said quickly, clearly shaken herself. They moved to a small seating area near the windows. Lily climbed onto the chair, legs dangling. Ethan sat across from her, removing his suit jacket without thinking and draping it over the back of the chair, as if the formal armor no longer fit. You said I looked lonely, he said gently. Lily nodded, swinging her feet. Sometimes people smile like that. Like what? Like they're smiling for other people, she said, choosing her words carefully, not for themselves. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. You're very observant, he said. She shrugged. You have to be. There was a pause. Lily, he said slowly, do you know what it means to ask someone to be your mom? She looked down at the rabbit, tracing the loose thread on its ear. It means they stay, she said quietly. They don't leave when it gets hard. The words struck him with unexpected force. Stay. He had promised that once. A lifetime ago. I can't promise things lightly, Ethan said, especially something that important. She nodded again, too quickly this time. That's okay. I just wanted to ask. If I didn't ask, I'd never know. Her bravery stunned him. Most adults he knew were terrified of asking for what they truly wanted. This little girl had carried hope like a fragile glass thing, and still dared to offer it to a stranger. You were very brave, he said. Was it wrong? She asked, eyes flicking up anxiously. No, he said firmly. It was honest. Across the room, a few executives pretended not to watch, pretending to check phones or whisper to assistants. Ethan was dimly aware that this moment would be talked about, dissected, speculated on. For the first time in years, he didn't care. What happens now? Lily asked. He considered the question carefully. Now, he said, we make sure you're okay. And then we talk, properly, with the people whose job it is to protect you. Her shoulders relaxed just a little. You won't disappear. No, he said without hesitation. I won't. She studied his face as if trying to decide whether to believe him. Finally, she slid off the chair and took a small step closer. Can I hold your hand? She asked. The question was quiet, almost casual, but it broke something open in him. Yes, he said, immediately. Her fingers slipped into his, warm and small. The contact sent a jolt straight through his chest. It felt right, terrifying, comforting. Your hand is big, she observed. He gave a weak smile. Yours is brave. She smiled then. Really smiled, for the first time. The coordinator cleared her throat gently. Mr. Cross, there are procedures. Meetings. Evaluations. I understand, Ethan said. And we'll do everything properly. He looked down at Lily. Would you like to come have dinner with me and the team tonight? Just dinner. Her eyes widened. With food. Yes, he said softly. With food. She nodded eagerly, then paused. Can my rabbit come? He smiled, a real smile this time. Your rabbit is always welcome. As they stood together, hand in hand, Ethan felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not grief, not loneliness, but responsibility mixed with hope. He didn't know where this path would lead. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. That whisper, "Can you be my mom?" had changed him. And whatever came next, he was no longer walking alone. The city lights blurred past the car windows as Ethan drove in silence. Lily sat in the back seat, her feet tucked beneath her, the stuffed rabbit buckled in beside her like a passenger who mattered. She hummed softly to herself, a tune without words, the kind children made up when they finally felt safe enough to be quiet. Ethan glanced at her through the rearview mirror. She was smiling. That alone felt unreal. Dinner had been simple. No speeches, no cameras, no executives. Just soup, bread, and a corner booth in a quiet restaurant. Lily had eaten carefully at first, as if afraid someone might change their mind, then with growing confidence. She had laughed when soup dripped onto her dress and looked to Ethan instinctively, waiting for scolding that never came. Something inside him had shifted with every small moment. Now, as they pulled into the driveway of his house, Lily pressed her face to the window. It's big, she whispered. So is the world, Ethan replied gently. That doesn't mean it's scary. Inside, the house felt different than it ever had before. It wasn't empty exactly, but it had always been quiet in a way that echoed. Too clean, too controlled. Tonight, Lily's small shoes by the door and the rabbit resting on the couch changed everything. Ethan showed her the guest room. Soft blankets, a small lamp shaped like a moon. He hesitated at the doorway, suddenly unsure. You can sleep here, tonight, he said. I'll be just down the hall. Okay, Lily nodded. She climbed onto the bed, then paused. Will you come back? Yes, he said instantly. I promise. That word again, promise. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep clutching the rabbit, Ethan sat alone in his study. Papers lay spread across the desk. Documents from social services, adoption requirements, evaluations, timelines. It was overwhelming. He rubbed his face with both hands and leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. You don't have to decide tonight, he told himself. But his heart didn't listen. Memories returned uninvited. His wife's laughter filling this very house, the way she used to talk about children, about teaching them kindness before anything else. If we ever do this, she had said once, we do it with our whole hearts. He stood abruptly and walked down the hall. Lily's door was slightly open. She was sitting up in bed, eyes wide, tears silently slipping down her cheeks. Ethan crossed the room in 2 steps and knelt beside her. Hey, he whispered. What's wrong? I thought you left, she sobbed. Everyone leaves. His chest tightened painfully. I'm here, he said firmly, sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm right here. She crawled closer without asking and buried her face against his side, shaking. He hesitated only a second before wrapping an arm around her, holding her carefully, like something precious, fragile, and incredibly real. Lily, he said softly, look at me. She lifted her tear-streaked face. You asked me something today, he continued. And I didn't give you an answer. She nodded, bracing herself. He took a deep breath. I can't replace your mom, he said honestly. And I can't promise everything will be easy. Her lip trembled. But, he added, voice thick, I can promise this. He cupped her small hands in his. I will stay. I will protect you. I will choose you. Every single day. Her eyes widened. Does that mean? She whispered. Tears finally fell freely down Ethan's face as he nodded. Yes, he said. If you'll have me, I want to be your family. Lily let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh and threw her arms around his neck with all the strength her small body had. He held her tightly, no longer afraid of breaking. You didn't disappear, she whispered into his shoulder. Never, he replied. Morning came softly. Sunlight spilled into the kitchen as Lily sat at the table coloring, feet swinging happily. Ethan watched her from the counter, coffee growing cold in his hands. For the first time in years, the house felt alive. The road ahead would be long. Meetings, paperwork, questions from the world. But none of that mattered right now. Because sometimes, the most powerful decisions aren't made in boardrooms. They're made when a little girl whispers a question. And someone finally answers with their heart.